Hi everyone, Slap Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new High on Fire album, Electric Messiah. California sludge and stoner metal outfit High on Fire, they are back, 8th full-length album. Now, even though it has been 3 years since the release of the band's last record, Luminiferous, I did not anticipate to hear from High on Fire so soon, because it has been just earlier this year since Matt Pike was totally killing it on the brand new Sleep album, The Sciences. The famed stoner metal outfit came back for a comeback record that was pretty excellent. Easily stoner metal album of the year with its beefy riffs and meditative grooves. Some really wild guitar soloing and leads as well. Just really great to see a band of Sleep's profile come back with a great record. Meanwhile though, High on Fire over here, brand new record, kind of hitting a point of predictability though, despite what sounds like their best efforts to kind of change things up a little. This second act of High on Fire's career so far has been an interesting one. After pretty much spending the entirety of the 2000s sounding like a heavy, mucky, smoke-filled version of Motorhead that preferred weed and cerebral grooves over speed and thrills, the band cleaned up their sound a little bit for their 2010 release Snakes for the Divine. A skinnier but admirable album that didn't quite have the heaviness and the girth of the band's previous efforts, which still helped clear the way for faster, more dynamic, and muscular records like De Vermis Mysteries, one of the most punishing sludge metal records of the decade. Maybe not as progressive or as flashy as like a Mastodon album, but still pretty fantastic. Then following that, we had the anthemic Luminiferous, where the band presented some of really their catchiest and most soulful and melodic material yet, while again still maintaining that pretty heavy and sludgy sound. And meanwhile, Electric Messiah sees the band going back into a speedier and more aggressive direction again. But now on the production end, it sounds like they're in a position to add a bit more clarity and depth and layers to everything here. The tone and performance style doesn't sound too much unlike Mysteries, especially on the title track to this thing, which really has as much thunder and throttle as any song off of that record. And as much as I do love this thing, the mix is pretty grimy. I could see it being improved with a bit more layers, a bit more harmony, a bit more body. However, Electric Messiah is not just simply High on Fire as usual, which is kind of an issue I have on this album with tracks like the opener, as well as the track Freebooter, songs that really, in the overall High on Fire canon, sound really standard. And occasionally on this record, the standard is really just not enough. The band wants to change things up, they want to do something slightly different, whether it be switching up their instrumental styles, though always not to the benefit of this record, like on the track The Witch and the Christ, which features some horridly tedious drumming. Have never really heard drumming this one-dimensional and boring on a High on Fire record, but here we are. But the band also sees fit to embark on a few longer tracks on this record, and not that the band have ever been shy about busting out these 6 or 7 minute sludge ragers, which successfully managed to stay entertaining from beginning to end, but now on this record we're getting a few tracks that are 9 minutes. 10 minutes. A few minutes difference between these songs and High on Fire's usual song length doesn't sound like a big difference. But what's odd about these cuts is that they're vaguely proggy. Sanctioned Annihilation and Steps of the Ziggurat have multiple phases worked into them, some build-ups too, a lot of compositional shifts, but High on Fire really fails to display the nuance and the dynamics to really kind of pull this grander, larger, more scaled style of songwriting off. All of these really large and sludgy guitar passages get really tiresome after a while, don't really create the epic feel I think the band was looking for. Another thing that's kind of head-scratching about these cuts is if they were as melodic or as dynamic as some of the softer or more subtle cuts off of Luminiferous, I could see what the band is doing here panning out. But despite all the changes happening across these tracks, the riffs, the vocals, they're not that catchy. They come off a little one-dimensional and just overly long-winded. There are some tracks on this record that offer a change of pace and some good songs and are a manageable length, like the Pallid Mask, which features some really fantastic slow slithering guitar chords, which transition very nicely into some driving drums and heavy riffs. Certainly one of the most evil sounding songs on the entire record, and Matt Pike's vocals are particularly angry, gargled, and strained on this song, much more than on a lot of other tracks here. The vocal intensity of this track really sells it. And with its triumphant guitar leads, the closing track Drowning Dog is actually pretty good too. The lead vocals strike me as being much more passionate than they are on a bulk of the record. Kind of took me back to Luminiferous a little bit. The drums punctuate the heavy riffs of the track really well, and there's something about the pacing and the groove and the guitar riffs of the track that have a pretty cool heavy metal style. And with Matt Pike's lyrics on this track, like, the numbers cross the lines in the sand, the pools of human rats, their tails are twisted and tied, eat of thy poison divine, and goddamn you, you're the shadows of men, and goddamn you, for it's kill or be killed in the end. A little Iron Maiden-esque, I have to admit. Despite the slightly improved production quality and the couple of changes and risks that they took on a couple of songs that didn't really pan out, this is very much a standard High on Fire record. A handful of cuts I really loved, a few others that just were a little middle of the road to me for them, and a few that I think could have been greatly improved had the band taken a different approach to tiering and building and structuring these longer cuts. Still though, I think it's a pretty solid record. It does have its highlights, it does have a great sound, but I hope the band's next offering is better than what they brought here. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 6 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, High on Fire, Electric Messiah, forever.